Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. Are you telling me you're going to be sort of demanding tonight? Is that how that's going to be?
I think you're the one who wants to be demanding. You just want to jump right in, don't you?
I do.
Not even a hi.
How do you do? No, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk. You have a date. You have a date tonight, right? Please tell me you have a date tonight.
I have a date with density.
Are you? Now I'm not joking, though. Please don't toy with me. Are you going to see it tonight?
I don't know.
Andy, Andy,
I have to let me tell you.
for
Hold,
crying
Hold,
out
please.
loud.
Hold, please. Yes, I likely will.
No, because no.
10 p.m.
All right, so we have to hurry at this
If we're
point.
done in time.
We have to hustle.
Yes. If we're done, my answer
No.
is yes.
Yes, it has to be yes, because I don't think I can not talk about this film. We're talking, of course, about Star Trek Into Darkness, which I did my cinematic duty, and I saw the very first show this morning. Got furniture actually falling over in my office. Did you hear that crash? That's a horrible.
It was that powerful of a film that
It just
making
knocked
the furniture fall over.
Making the furniture fall over. I did my cinematic duty 9:30 a.m. this morning, and I saw it. And you made I'm not a tidy bit of fun of me for seeing it in Limax. Oh,
that yes.
Yeah, Limax and fake 3D, 2.5D.
Well, you got to take what you can get.
No, I took what I could get. I took it, and I stopped. I'm not even going to talk about it. It's all day. I've been wanting to talk to you about it, of all people, and you did not do your duty. I'm very disappointed.
It was either a midnight show or none, and I wasn't up to doing a midnight show.
Were you chicken? Were you scared a little bit?
Ooh.
Stop.
Hey, I'm not Marty McFly here. That doesn't work on me.
We're all a little bit McFly.
A little bit. But
okay.
The chicken part, I'm not.
All right. Well, I am very disappointed that we can't talk about. Can we talk a little bit about it? Is there anything you want to know?
Nope.
Would you like to know anything?
Nope.
How about anything?
What's the spaceship's name?
Name it.
What's the spaceship's name?
No, see, I want to say something. I want to be snarky and give away something, but I won't.
I know
won't,
you do.
because I love you. It's because of the love.
Thank you.
Deep breath. Every time I try to take a deep breath, I just hold it. I can't get it out.
That's awesome.
Okay. All right. I will be seeing it again with my children this weekend, so we'll be able to talk about it twice next week.
So it's children friendly?
No, but I make bad decisions.
Oh, right. That's right. I forgot who I was talking.
One of my children, it's okay for. The other one, I'll be holding his face during just a couple of sequences.
Awesome.
It's a face-holding film.
It's one of those.
Yeah.
Good.
So what do you have on deck for you? Oh, hey, do you know what this is? This is the next reel.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. I'm Pete. That's Andy.
Hi.
And tonight we're going to wrap up our Paddy Chayefsky trilogy of films with 1955's Marty, starring Ernest Beef Borgnine.
That just doesn't sound good.
I'm trying to make it stick. Do you think it would be better with the Ernest the Beef Borgnine? Hey, the beef.
Oh my!
You know, he's probably I hear he was a boxer, and he would have been the beef in the Bronx, right? And you can find out more about us at thenextreel.com. And there are lots of places you can follow us. And the important places are obviously nextreel.com, iTunes, where you can search for The Next Reel and subscribe to the show and get it for free, delivered to you every single week. We also have the RSS feed available, so if you roll your own podcast recipe there, you can grab that RSS feed and subscribe in your own application of choice. You can follow us on, Twitter and Facebook. Facebook's where a lot of the conversation is happening, and we have the fantastic Steve Sarmento, movie lover, comrade, dear friend, funny beard today.
Yes, strange shave job.
Boy, does he post good stuff though. So we don't hold his we don't hold his face against him. So there's a lot of great stuff up on the Facebook. We encourage you to join us over there. I think that's going to be it.
Okay.
I'm like a master of efficiency tonight. I'm all hyped up.
I can tell. I'm a little afraid. I'll be honest.
I can't. I don't want to share anything about the film until we get through our trailers. Let's do the trailer. Would you go first?
Yes, I will. There's quite a few really exciting trailers that I wanted to talk about tonight, but seeing that I have to just pick one, I chose Prince Avalanche. What would I call this? It's just a wacky comedy about two highway road workers who spend the summer, and that takes place in the 80s, spend the summer away from their life painting stripes on the road and go basically live in the wilderness. And it stars Paul Rudd and Emil Hirsch as the two men who decide to go do this. And I found it great because, one, I love Paul Rudd in most everything he does. And I loved seeing Emil Hirsch in something where he was out in the wild and in a character completely opposite of who he played in Into the Wild, somebody who has no sense of nature.
Right.
And I just found that a delight to watch the two of them at work on screen together. David Gordon Green is, I believe he adapted it from the original story by Hafstein Gunnar Sigurðsson, I think is how you say that.
No, it is now. It certainly is now.
That's how he likes it when I say it.
Yeah, he does like that.
Yes, and David Gordon Green, he produces, directs, and wrote the script. He has brought us some fare that is stuff I'm not as excited about.
Pineapple Express, the Sitter, Your Highness.
Yeah, most of the stuff I'm not very excited about.
Did you ever get into Eastbound and Down? He did a lot of Eastbound and Down.
I see that, but I never did. He did George Washington, though, one of the first films that he directed, which actually got quite made quite a mark in like the indie film circles. And it's supposed to be great. I haven't seen it. That's one I have on my list that I keep wanting to see. And going from George Washington to all of these wacky comedies that he's done, I find so strange. But then seeing that he's doing this Prince Avalanche, which doesn't look as kind of wacky pothead goofball comedy like Pineapple Express and Your Highness, doing something that looks just a little more like just an interesting comedy about quirky people, I find it much more exciting to see. And Prince Avalanche, I don't know, looks pretty good to me. It opens in August 9th.
I'm also looking forward to this. I had not seen the trailer until you sent it over this evening, and it surprised me at the subtlety of the goofiness. Yeah. Because it really is, it's I think it's goofy in its restraint, and I really enjoyed watching it. It's got it's sort of what's the vibe that I get from this movie? You know what? It reminds me of what's the one with the monsters in the big suits and the boy who goes into the dreamland with the monsters and
Where the Wild Things Are.
Yeah, Where the Wild Things Are. Like, it's got that sort of just that texture and quality to it, and kind of the handwritten titles, and it's
kind of a dreamy quality.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It really is, and it felt a little strange just watching it, trying to actually figure out, are these guys really goofy highway workers, or are they in a funny kind of a dream state? Right. So, no, it looks really interesting.
Yeah. So that's mine. It's yours.
I'm going with a more experimental pick this time round. James Franco. I'm going with a Franco.
All right.
As I Lay Dying, coming out.
Speaking of pothead comedies that he's in, this is not one.
This is not one. This is one not only that he is in, but he also wrote the screenplay and directed As I Lay Dying, adapted from the William Faulkner novel of the same name. And let's see, it opens internationally. I think it's a Cannes selection, right? So it opens in this month in France, and then it'll leak out to the
I don't know if it has.
I'm not even sure if it's going to come.
I don't think it has. It'll probably come around, but I don't think it has any official release date. Yet.
You know what I'm hoping for is an iTunes, a nice iTunes release. This seems like that kind of movie that we might get digitally before we see it anywhere else. It's got a great looking cast. It's a movie of really dirty bearded dudes, so we've had the conversation about dirty bearded dudes before, but it's a journey story, and I'm a big sucker for journey stories, and I love this idea that they've come together to honor the death of their mother, and I've always loved the book, and I'm fascinated to see Franco's take on this film. The trailer is really intriguing to me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's brave. It is a brave thing to do, I think. This shows guts to me.
And it looks, the texture and everything, speaking of textures of the last film, this one has that, he really is capturing that vibe of this period really nicely. I mean, it doesn't look like a Hollywoodized version of the story. And speaking of, like the Outlaw Josie Wales a few weeks back, where Clint Eastwood cast people who looked really authentic, I think he's doing the same thing here. The people really look like the period.
Yeah, there are these sequences where you get like, Tim Blake Nelson, who's just a great kind of hillbilly looking guy, and they just, they just nailed the gaunt period look of the characters in this film, and so I'm really intrigued. It sort of has the this is going to be a night of me not remembering stuff. What was the other George Clooney one? I am a man.
Yeah.
Constant. What was the
Oh Brother,
Where Art Thou? It's got that sort of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou thing going for it, but not as happy.
Yeah.
So
not as musical.
Certainly not as musical. But it's got I think a very a wonderful sort of visual texture to it. So I'm really interested in it. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Shall we?
I think we shall. Is the water warm enough?
Let me dip my toe in and check.
Okay. So this is the we'll call it the spiritual threequel. This was the first in reverse order. This is the Benjamin Button style review, a threequel review of Oscar-winning Paddy Chayefsky movies.
That's right.
We've covered the first two, Network and The Hospital, and now Marty, which takes us a step back 20-some-odd years, or 15 years, certainly, from The Hospital. 1955.
Yeah.
He not only did Chayefsky win an Oscar for this film, but Delbert Mann won Best Director. Ernest the Beef Borgnine won for Best Actor, and it actually won 1955 Best Motion Picture.
Yeah,
it swept it.
I don't know if winning, and it also won for I think that was it. Ernest, Delbert Mann director, Harold Hecht for producer Best Picture, and Paddy Chayefsky for Best Script.
Right.
And then it was also nominated for Joe Mantell, Best Supporting Actor, Betsy Blair, Best Supporting Actress, Best Art Direction, Set Decoration, Black and White. This was the day when they had two categories, because one was for black and white photography, one was for color, and then Best Cinematography, Black and White. It didn't win those, but it did pretty good for itself back in the Oscars for its year. Yeah.
So what do you think of this movie? Had you ever seen this?
Yeah, I have seen this back in the day, ages ago, when I started plowing through all the Best Picture winners.
I thought I had seen it. I think I said last week that I was looking forward to seeing it again.
But then...
Well, you go ahead. What do you think of this film?
I really like this film. I find it a very slight film. It's a very slight, simple, slice of life, easy film. It takes place in one night, and it's a very just kind of a refreshing take on just a kind of a simpler time, and the characters, I find, what really draws me to this film. But that being said, I still find it just a very slight film. It's just, and I'm not saying that to slight it in any way. I'm just saying it's not a big, grandiose story. It's just this very simple story about a guy going out one night who finds himself too old, finds himself ugly, heavy set, and he's just looking for a connection, really. And that's really what the film's about. I really enjoy it for what it is. Is it one of my favorite films? No, but I like it for what it is.
Yeah, it was a funny film. I thought there was a lot going for it. There were a number of elements going for it. I like that you used the word slight, and I think I would use that word and be more deliberate about it. I
I think it is a slight film in the way that it is impactless. It is an impact-free movie.
Sure.
I watched it, and as I'm watching it, I had no memory of having watched it, even though I could have sworn that I'd seen it. It was completely brand new. I found it, in spite of the fact that I thought, okay, this is it's a charming, as you say, it's a charming sort of slice of life film. I was bored to tears. Bored to tears. So I think it's a strange film for me because it's possible to be both charming and boring at the same time.
Yeah.
I was stunned after watching it at the number of awards that it won and was nominated for. I do not think it's meritorious of any of those awards, any of them.
Well, coming out in a time, I mean, it was up against for Best Picture, Love is a Many Splendor Thing. I haven't seen that, so I can't say. Actually, I haven't seen any of these, so I can't speak. Love is a Many Splendor Thing, Mr. Roberts, Picnic, and The Rose Tattoo. So maybe 1955 was just a light year.
It might have been a light year, but see, when you talk about these slice of life sort of films, I jump back immediately to Christmas in July, which was obviously from an earlier time, but it gives me that same sort of feel to it, but it's got so much more momentum of story. Mm-hmm. This whole idea of following a generally boring main character, generally boring protagonist in Ernest Borgnine, who is a butcher and a snooze of a butcher at that. Following through this litany of conversations about how disappointed all of his customers are that he is not married yet, and that he keeps straightening them out about how it's his other brother that's been married, and then there's the other brother that's already married and with the kids, and it's just all the comparisons to the other brother. I found even the execution in this slice of life was boring. It took me 4 days to watch this movie because I literally kept snoozing off after about 15 minutes.
It's a very simple thing. Now, here's something. I felt very much, I think, the way you felt the first time I watched it. I was like, oh, okay, well, I can just move past that one now and check it off my list. Not worrying about it. I was excited to see it again because it's Paddy Chayefsky. And again, I didn't remember a whole lot about it except for, just a kind of a basic rudimentary, plot synopsis type of thing. I found myself enjoying it more the second time, and maybe it's just because I had seen it before. I walked in knowing what I was going to be expecting, and I was just able to kind of go, okay, I know this is going to be kind of this just really light little thing, and I just kind of settled in, and I was okay with it. Maybe it's more so than something like Christmas in July, which, I mean, it certainly is marked in the time that it was made, but this one feels marked more in the time it was made, the way that the story itself unfolds. It just feels very much kind of just a simple 50s storytelling sort of style. And perhaps that's also because it came from this teleplay that that Paddy Chayefsky had done prior, back in 1953, that the movie was actually based on. Maybe that's why it just has this feel a little bit more.
But what's funny about this whole thing is that I don't even see this as a story-driven film, right? There is no story. There's no story. This is all character. It is this internal emotional drama of Ernest the Beef feeling inferior and then trying to figure out a way not to be inferior. Like it is the relationship of, so he's living with his mother. Yeah. And there is this parallel kind of character drama in his brother and sister who are trying to get their his aunt, their mother, to move out so they can have their house together. That is actually the most kind of heavy air quotes riveting part of the story, is there's this fight on the deck. Mm-hmm. When the Beef is trying to have this conversation with the brother and with his brother and get some money to open his own butcher shop, and it's like a 2-minute sequence where the brother won't is not able to listen to the Beef because he keeps having this fight with his wife, and you can tell there's this there's a whole lot of words and not a lot of communication going on. And that scene, I think, is particularly strong in a movie that's otherwise fairly weak. But
with a great line. Come on, you can fight with her anytime.
Yeah, exactly. So there are a couple of zingers like that in the movie. I mean, I'm not saying that as in terms of Chayefsky's work, it's not. I mean, it feels like a teleplay. You know, we gave a lot of trouble to 42 for feeling like a after school special, and I think this one, I think it fits the bill even more. This feels like something I would have cranked up the hi-fi to watch. So I was just left sort of impactless, and that's why I'm sort of stunned that the movie, it did well. It was considered a box office success. It made money. A lot of people won things, and it's left with this sort of institutional memory of being a one of the greats of the era, and I don't see it.
Well, it's one of the greats of the era because of the place
because
that it
of
had.
the era.
Well, because of the era. I mean, it really is. It's one of those films that will always have a place in history because it won Best Picture, all of that. That being said, it's not available on DVD that readily. It's not available on, I mean, you can get it digitally and stuff. But it's not something that is being pressed over and over again for new audiences to come and purchase. It's a film that is of its time, and I think it stands well for its place in its time. That's my sense of it.
Okay.
But that being said,
I think we all can just raise a glass to not actually being raised and making movies in this time. If this is what we're going to be remembered for. That was a horrible. That was a horrible thing to say. I apologize.
There are better films in the 50s. There certainly are, and we've talked about some of them.
Yes.
But that being said, I don't know. I still find it better the second go around. Having seen it before, going into it, knowing what I was going to expect, I just found it nice. I just found it easy, and I didn't have to get into it too much. I just liked this interesting struggle of this character who just feels dismissed because he's too old and ugly and he's not happy. He finally finds happiness, only to have everyone who was rooting for him to find happiness all of a sudden want to take it away because now they're realizing it's going to affect their own happiness. I don't know. I liked that aspect of the story. Again, it's not the greatest story, but I do find it enjoyable. So I'll give it that.
Okay. I mean, I'll give that to you.
Yeah, all right.
That's fine. So let's just walk through some of the in your view, some of the strengths in the characters. Like if we're looking for the performances, we have Betsy. Clara.
Betsy Blair.
Betsy Blair played Clara. I mean, what did you think of her role in the film and opposite the Beef?
I liked her. I mean, as I said, she was nominated for supporting actress for her role. I think that she had come from, she'd done films before, and I believe at the time she was actually married to Gene Kelly. At the time that she was in this, so she had been around. People knew who she was. I enjoy her in the film. I think it's a nice character. I think she plays it well. She plays kind of that ugly duckling nicely, and I enjoy it. I do feel that at the end of the film, and this was something that to me really struck me as TV, like teleplay scripting rather than something that would have been done later, when he finally decides he's going to wise up and be happy rather than try placating everyone else in his life. And he calls her. We don't see the other end of the phone call. We only see him. Right. We never cut back to her and her happiness. The last time we see her, it's sitting in her living room with her parents watching whatever it is they're watching on TV. And she's just sitting there crying. And it's heartbreaking. And then we never cut back to her.
Right.
It's teleplay filmmaking is what it was.
Well, it's teleplay filmmaking. It is a 1950s cultural examination of the role of women being reflected in the role of women in film that aren't, necessarily the leading lady kind of, And so, I see that. It was interesting just the way they used her character as a tool for Marty to express against. Right. We have the seemingly interminable sequence of him talking about himself. We have the equally sort of but frustrating sequence of him being sexually frustrated and wanting a 1950s kiss real bad. And then we have the turnabout at the end where, like you say, I mean, this also had that sort of natural 1950s teleplay sequence. His final speech, you don't like her, my mother doesn't like her, she's a dog, and I'm fat ugly man. Well, we're gonna have a good time, and I'm gonna beg her to marry me. And hey, Ange, when are you gonna get married? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Essentially having the exact same conversation, but being on the other side of that relationship with his with Ange. And so that's when he calls her, and the movie kind of ends. And so she, I think it doesn't feel like she was taken very seriously apart from being a prop.
Well, there's more to it than that. I mean, you're right. It's not a story focusing on the woman. It's really about Marty and his character development. It's the woman isn't given as much time to develop, but she's given, I think, better screen presence than Ange, for example.
Right.
I think that she,
and certainly given enough time to get a nomination.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very sweet performance. It was nice. I enjoyed her in the film. It's just it's not a performance that's explosive. There's not a whole lot of stuff happening with it. It's kind of a light little performance. It doesn't bother me. I think it's fine. I don't know if I'd go so far as to call her a prop. It's not a character where we really see her own character arc. Maybe we do, but maybe it's because we're looking at it with eyes from the 21st century as opposed to the 50s when times were different for women. And I mean, you could just see that the way that these dances were held and everything, and her character just kind of gaining some confidence as somebody finally starts to find something more in her. I don't know.
Wouldn't you say, though, that sort of depends on how you characterize this film? It looks like a cultural mismatch if you are expecting Marty to be a love story. But if you're looking at Marty as a belated coming of age story about the man, it's not a love story. It's not about their relationship. It's about him coming to terms with his relationship with his mother, with his friends, and with this woman. Then the expectation of her being actually having her own arc kind of fades away.
Yeah, right. You're right.
So
you're right. Much like, but then it pretty much would fall into the exact same camp with every other single character in the film: the mother, the brother and sister-in-law, the aunt, the friends. Every other person in the film becomes a prop, and maybe it makes sense for a film called Marty.
Yeah,
that we're focusing solely on Marty and his growth, and we're not getting a solid story or character arc with any of the other characters in the film. They are essentially, I guess maybe you're right, they're essentially, I just always hesitate calling them props. I don't feel like they're props. I feel like they're good tools that he's able to use in order to find his own way.
Yeah, I buy that. I think it's for me where I get hung up is on did they pick the most interesting potentially most interesting slice of this man's life? What is it? I kept thinking to myself, what is it that Chayefsky is doing with this guy? I mean, this was, here we have once again this this depressed white guy who makes allusions toward often himself because he's so upset because people don't think he's married. What is it that Chayefsky is getting at with these characters that he keeps writing over and over and over again?
I don't know. It's an interesting question. It certainly is something that he's exploring quite a bit, is this role of the male and where they fit in the world. And if they don't fit in where they think they're supposed to fit in, where does that leave them?
Right.
It is definitely something that is interesting, at least in these three films. I don't know if I could go so far as to say, yes, he's exploring this in all of his works, because we're only talking about these
we're only talking
films.
about the three. Sure, that's not a fair. Well, over and over and over. I only did that 3 times.
That's right.
To be fair.
But it is definitely an interesting point.
What is most interesting to me is it's not like this is a triptych, right? It's not like he wrote these films 2 years apart. That he's writing these films in the early 50s and then again in the 70s says that there is an incomplete arc for this guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is something that he is trying to get off his chest over the course of at least 20 years.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting.
It's definitely, when you see this sort of thing coming out in a writer, it just seems like it's definitely some form of self-exploration, that he's also working on his own place in the world and what he does and everything. And I find it pretty interesting.
Oh, I do too. I think may make this, makes this film sort of redeeming to me is because it's a historical piece. And like all of these pieces, when you think of the writer as somebody who's holding up a mirror of some element of our culture that he really wants us to see, right? I mean, it's like holding up a mirror and a magnifying glass. We need to focus on this. We're going to show us a representation of ourselves, and focus on it, critically. And what are you going to get out of this 2-hour or 90-minute exploration?
Yeah.
And that's where I think maybe the movie let me down, is that I don't know that I necessarily got his point. So I'm going to blame myself.
Well, and again, I think it just goes back to looking at it's really just trying to find your own happiness, and maybe that's just what he's exploring in this particular one.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that, but
where do you stand on Mr. Mann, Delbert Martin Mann Jr.?
He's I think he's an effective director for projects like this. Delbert Mann directed quite a bit of television. In fact, I think that's where he met Paddy Chayefsky, and I believe also Ernest Borgnine. I think he met them all back there, like when he was doing some things like Philco Goodyear Playhouse. I believe that's where he met the producer Fred Coe, and he was working on one of these TV shows and was talking to Paddy Chayefsky about some project they were working on, and they came across They came across just one of these dance halls, and Paddy saw a sign that said, "Girls, dance with the man who asks you. Remember, men have feelings too." And from that sign, he all of a sudden had this really interesting notion of doing this play about, a couple meeting in a place like this. And then he also really liked this idea of kind of an ugly guy and an ugly girl who kind of come together, and basically kind of the not so Hollywood story. And I found that interesting. And Delbert Mann was there from the beginning, and he directed the original TV broadcast that came out in 1953 that actually starred Rod Steiger as Marty. And I can't remember why, but for something happened, Rod Steiger decided he didn't want to continue a contract or something like that. And of course, Ernest Borgnine came in and ended up doing the role, and of course winning an Oscar for it. I'm sure Rod Steiger felt a little stupid after that. But yeah, Delbert Mann, I think, did an effective job with the film. He went on directing films all the way into the 80s. And I believe he actually he was nominated for Oscars a number of times. His films were nominated for Oscars. And then all the way through 1986, he did a made-for-TV movie, The Last Days of Patton, which I guess was a made-for-TV sequel to Patton from 1970, that actually starred George C. Scott as Patton again, and Richard Dysart, both of whom we talked about in The Hospital last week.
Right. Big fans.
Big fans. So yeah, that's Delbert Mann.
I have not seen very many Delbert Mann films. I've seen Separate Tables.
I've seen very few. Maybe Night Crossing might be the only other film of his that I've seen.
1982 Night Crossing. I have not seen Night Crossing.
I think that's the only one. I mean, he's my sense of him is he's just an effective director. He does what he needs to do. He gets it done, and that's it's again not somebody who's really putting a mark on where you can watch and go, oh, that's a Delbert Mann film.
What did you get a chance to watch the trailer?
Oh yes.
Okay, so the trailer.
Trailers from the 50s.
And I just found this interesting, and I bring it up right now because you said that this was there was a fascination by this idea of having the non-Hollywood couple, right?
Yeah, right.
And I find it fascinating when you turn on the trailer of this thing.
Yeah.
And it's Burt Lancaster of legendary Hollywood couples hunk. And he's
who acted as one of the producers on the film. Who was
one of the producers of the film, and he is making a pitch, a plea, if you will, to come see this movie because he's so proud of this little slice of life story.
Right.
And I thought that was maybe it's the gift of hindsight that makes me circumspect of his pitch. But I found myself thinking, gosh, isn't that quaint that the hunky Burt Lancaster would encourage us to go see the Ugly Duckling film.
Right.
And so it's fascinating to watch how they, I couldn't tell. I mean, I kept getting the sense that maybe they didn't have a whole lot of confidence in it. And yet it obviously performed very well. Right. But it's just like the way he speaks. This is the kind of thing, this is the kind of copy that you would write, script copy that you would write if you really were trying to, if you were unsure about your property.
It really does come across that way. You're right. Absolutely right. That's very funny.
You can find a link to the trailer we're talking about in the show notes at thenextreel.com/TNR/Marty.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the beef.
The beef. Ernest.
Yeah.
I've always liked Ernest Borgnine, and I can't remember what I saw as a kid that had Ernest Borgnine in it. I don't know what it was, but he's one of those faces that you see, like it's such a recognizable face.
Yeah.
I saw it as a kid in something. And it's just one of those faces that ever since then I think it was The Black Hole. I bet it was The Black Hole from 1979. And I've just always kind of had that connection with him because of that. And I haven't seen a vast number of his movies. He's a guy who's been very, very busy from the 50s all the way through, very recently. I mean, he only just passed away last July 8th, 2012.
Right, and he was still active in 2012. He has been busy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. In fact, he was himself on Saturday Night Live in 2010. But he is, I knew him from. I first met Ernest Borgnine opposite Jan Michael Vincent in the hit series Airwolf.
Yes.
And I thought this was, look at the old man. I was a kid, and I was watching it for the helicopter, and only much later did I, as he starts, like you said, he just starts cropping up. He is everywhere, and who knows? This list of his films is epic. 1951 through 2010, and so the films that he stands out in. Obviously he was in McHale's Navy on television for a long time.
But geez, you run down the list from Here to Eternity, Bad Day at Black Rock, Violent Saturday, Jewball. That just they just re-released that one. Let's see what else. Yeah, McHale's Navy.
The Dirty Dozen.
The Dirty Dozen. Yeah, Ice Station Zebra.
Yeah.
The Flight of the Phoenix.
The Wild Bunch.
Yeah.
These are big films. Poseidon, The Poseidon Adventure. Love me some 70s disaster film.
Yeah. And then even like Escape from New York, he popped up in that, and we talked about a few weeks ago in Gattaca.
That's right. And so that's why, with the exception actually of Gattaca, the exception to my point, which you totally derailed now, I am used to seeing Ernest Borgnine as a big actor, as a larger than life sort of character, right? He's either in this sort of military function or he's in some sort of renegade function. He's a big character. He's and he's got a big build to him. He's very broad chested, kind of larger guy. And so watching him play this sort of subdued kind of goofy character, I felt was kind of out of context for me. Obviously it was very early in his career, but he still has the build and character of a large, and I'm not saying necessarily physically large here, but a sort of cosmically large person.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to sort of believe him in this character. So I had a hard time kind of watching him as Marty. I'm not a very good person for this film. Clearly.
This is a sort of film. Give it a few years and try watching it again and see if it changes for you.
I don't know if I'll stay awake.
Well, just try it and just see. I'd be curious to talk to you about it in a few years and see what you think.
All right. Episode 187.
There you go.
All right. So that is to say, I love Ernest Borgnine. I love everything he does, and this one is out of character for me.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but you're right. I mean, he does play such big characters that it's just a different sort of character. But is it different than seeing Will Ferrell do something like Everything Must Go, or Steve Carell doing Seeking a Friend at the End of the World, where it's somebody who's stereotyped for some type of role that you're just so used to seeing. When they step out and do something a little different, it almost is like the audience rejects that because they just don't want. It's like you're the antibody and they are the infection coming in, and you're trying to protect the body from what you're used to. How's that for a strange metaphor?
I hear you, and yet I thought Will Ferrell did a fantastic job in Everything Must Go.
No, well, I'm okay. Well,
right. I mean, like,
so you're saying Ernest Borgnine didn't do a fantastic job.
I am saying it is I'm saying people get typecast for a reason, and some people find it easier to break their type.
Okay.
Right. I mean, Steve Carell. What isn't it? What's the one we were just talking about? The trailer that's coming out. I know. What's that called? Do you know what the thing I'm talking about? I mean, that's where Steve Carell plays the kind of
the hot kick-ass guy.
And that's it's out of type, and yet it feels, at least judging from the clips in the trailer, feels pretty believable.
Yeah,
that's. I mean, they are solid actors, and we know them for that work. But in this case, for Marty, I just couldn't get into it.
Interesting. That's the way back you're referring to, by the way.
The way back. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Good catch. Okay. What else do you want to talk about? You've got your list. I feel like I've just been railing against this movie, and I'm sorry about that. You now have the floor. The whole of it.
Two little things. But I mean, I enjoy the film. It is a slight film, and I've said my piece. Joe Mantell, who I think is the strangest choice for getting an Oscar nomination for this film, as his friend and his buddy Angelo. I don't see him getting a nomination for what he did in this film. That surprises me more than Betsy Blair. That being said, Joe Mantell did go on to be Lawrence Walsh, the associate of Jake Gittes in Chinatown. He is the one who delivers the famous last line in Chinatown, "Forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown." That's Joe Mantell.
Huh.
So
I did not have that connection. I feel better for this.
That it makes me like him that much more, because I was just like, why on earth would they nominate him for supporting actor? I couldn't see that in this film. Yeah. I'm glad to see the Jack Lemmon one for Mr. Roberts.
Right.
Betsy Blair, one last little note about her that I found interesting. She'd been acting in the 40s, and then she got interested in Marxism, and it led to her getting investigated by HUAC and she was blacklisted for a while. It wasn't until her performance in Marty, and a critically acclaimed performance, that she won a BAFTA award and was nominated for her Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. That helped her kind of get through that blacklist and everything.
So really, only the award winners are.
No,
that's like a ticket to freedom.
It's because she played a sweet little American girl. That would be my guess.
Well, I hear what you're really saying, Andy.
Yes. But yeah, that's all I have though for Marty.
We talk numbers?
It's a little thin on numbers. I did find a few things. I found the production budget of $350,000, which seems really little, but that's what I found.
Yeah, right.
And then I found that I couldn't find anything as far as what it made in theaters, but I did find that just from like video sales and stuff like that it made $2 million domestically and 1.5 million internationally. So even in the video sales, which I don't think are happening for Marty that much more, but probably when it first came out on video is when these sales numbers came from. Even then it made its money back. So I'm sure it did handsomely at the box office too.
Well, I don't know. All right, I've said my piece.
All right. Well, let's call our Paddy Chayefsky series done.
I am. Do you have any final sort of? Would you like to offer a final summary judgment on Paddy?
I think we already kind of chatted about him in relation to these three films, but I mean, I do really enjoy his characters. I feel that he is strongest when he is writing specific moments for characters, and I enjoy monologues the characters have. I know you weren't as keen on them in Marty, but I did really enjoy some of the monologues characters had. I did enjoy them in Hospital. I did enjoy them in Network. I really enjoy what he does in that respect. I found it interesting what we were just talking about as far as his characters and this kind of exploration of self in their world when they're not able to they're not fitting in anymore. Mm-hmm. I found that very interesting. I definitely want to continue catching up on Paddy Chayefsky's films. I think that he's got a lot of other great ones out there that I need to catch up on. I think the only other one I've seen is Altered States, which is quite the mind-bending trip, and I haven't seen that one in years. I'm curious to revisit. So,
Altered States is one of my. It's on my kind of my back catalog, top of my back catalog list. Like I've watched that movie probably 50 times, and I had a really unnatural obsession with a sensory deprivation tank in college, and so it's one of those movies that kind of taps a deeper place for me. But I'm with you. I haven't seen any other Chayefsky films that I remember, and this experience of kind of walking through these three has really made me want to watch more of them, because I think I had generalized my impression of Paddy Chayefsky's work based on my really deep earned love of Network. I think that is still, it is our number one film. It is at the very top of my list as well. And it has been, it always has been, as far as I can remember. I love that movie. The Hospital I didn't like as much, and Marty I like even less. And so my overall impression of Chayefsky's work is averaging down. And I don't like that. I feel like I need to see some better work. I need to average back up, or else I'm starting to see him as a less consistent writer than I had presumed he was. And that's I don't like that. It makes me kind of squirmy.
Yeah, well, we'll both have to kind of do some exploration on our own, watch some other of his films, and find other ones that we feel really stand out. And, I'm sure there are other ones out there. I mean, he's obviously, he had been doing films for, from the mid-'50s through the early '80s. So, I mean, he's got a good number to choose from.
Oh, yeah, certainly. But I do want to just latch onto your comment that I think his, when you look at the movie, at the segments that are really particularly strong, they're the super strong character, like the sort of the pinnacle of character arcs. the big fights, the big arguments. That's where he really gets to exercise that rapier wit, the vocabulary scimitar. So lots of good stuff to catch up on. I take it back. I've seen more than I thought. I saw the Americanization of Emily and Paint Your Wagon, Altered States. Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, so we got some catching up to do. Any case. Shall we rank it? I think this is going to be a challenging rank.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm excited to see where this is going.
My sense is it's going to end up toward the bottom of the list. Not saying that we hate it, just finding that we've talked about so many films that we like, but I have a feeling that it's gonna. My guess is it's going to end up below The Hospital, but above the rest of the stack at the bottom. The ones that we really
I think so too, because I think we're going to be ranking it on different criteria. I did not like the movie. You like the movie, but I think there are a lot of movies you like better.
Oh yeah, I mean, Marty is not a film I feel I need to go back and watch regularly.
Yeah,
it's I like it for what it is, but like I said, it's just a very slight film. It's just okay. I got it. I've seen it. I'm good.
Yeah. All right, let's do this thing.
All right, let's do it. Marty and the Sandlot.
Well,
I believe we're going with the Sandlot. Hercules und the Sandlot, kids, as they say in Germany. I'm sure that
I love the Germans.
Right. I do too. Parallax View. I would go with that one.
Parallax View.
And next one is Bull Durham. Even you're going to go with Bull Durham on this one. I'm going to go
and I have a footnote to this point. Remind me to give you my footnote.
I will remind you.
The next one.
I have the finger string on my finger.
Yeah.
The Hospital or Marty.
Oh, The Hospital.
Strange Day. And here we go. Now we're down to the bottom stack. Strange Days or Marty.
I would pick Strange Days.
As I think about it, I would too. I enjoy Marty, but I'd probably only pick Strange Days just for the opening. But even then, it's just invigorating to watch that opening. Marty or Rush?
Andy?
It is not going below Rush.
I'm going to say Marty. I'm going to pick Marty. Okay. Even I will pick Marty.
Thank you. All right. It ended up 87 out of 88.
My footnote.
Okay, yes, the Bull Durham footnote.
I was deeply saddened when I was reviewing our statistics. Because our show, listenership of our show wildly fluctuates based on the movies that we're doing. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't download movies that they haven't seen or they haven't seen. So we'll get these movies, new release films. We get this massive spike. Everybody's, all of our. It appears that all of our listeners download the new releases, and of the back catalog, it tends to be fairly dynamic, right? Mm-hmm.
Marty's probably going to be on the light side.
I think it's going to be on the light side, so we don't have to worry a whole lot about what we say here. No one's ever going to hear it. But I was deeply saddened to hear that, to see that on our stack ranking of most popular shows, Bull Durham was second.
Oh, there you go.
Second most popular show, based on and so I rank that as our second most popular film. That we have reviewed, and that hurts my feelings.
It's fantastic. It's great.
Yeah, no, good for baseball.
That's right.
I count that as an upvote for baseball.
People love them some baseball.
What are we doing next? Where do we go from here? We're hitting the summer months.
We're hitting this is going to be our fun little streak. We're going to do our Magicians series. Magicians, I guess we'll call it magicians / illusionists.
Illusionists.
I can't even say it. And then it's going to cross over. Should we say the crossover? I guess we can.
Yeah,
right?
It's a very special episode. It's a VPE.
We'll do a VPE. I don't know what VPE is.
A very special episode.
Wouldn't that be
No, VSE.
VSE.
It's late.
We're going to do a VSE with the film board.
Yeah. That's a couple of weeks.
Which will cross over into a heist series.
Oh, what a great summer.
It's we're both quite looking forward.
And I could say with confidence that the next two movies we're going to do I love these movies. I have so much fun watching these movies.
Yeah.
And the third one, our VSEPES episode, I obviously haven't seen. It's a film board. It's brand new, but the trailers I'm pretty excited about.
Yes.
All right. I think I'm done here.
I think you're done too.
You have to hurry. You need to get out of here.
You better be done so I can leave.
Yeah, you got to get out of here. Hey, right. Good talk, man.
Yes, indeed. Have a great evening, and I will chat with you soon.
I love your body, Larry.
We wanted to take a moment to thank you for your continued support over the years. It's hard to believe that we have been having weekly, in-depth discussions about movies since 2011.
That's right, 12 years and counting. Producing this show is a labor of love for us, but it does require a lot of time and effort each week.
If you enjoy our podcast and would love to help keep it going, there are some easy ways you can show your support. One is by using our Originals page to shop for the original source material that movies we've discussed were based on.
That's right. In Season 1 alone, we covered 13 films adapted from books or plays, from Charlie Kaufman's adaptation to David Fincher adaptations like Fight Club.
In Season 2, we covered even more, like Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes and The African Queen from our series about legendary cinematographer Jack Cardiff.
We can't forget about the 4 Jason Bourne movies we talked about. Love those movies. Well, the original trilogy, at least.
For our Richard D. Zanuck series, we did Jaws, Rush, Big Fish, and more. And for our horror series, we talked about John Carpenter's The Thing, which was adapted from Who Goes There?
We did our first great car chase series with movies like Bullet, The French Connection, and Drive. And for the holidays, we did Preston Sturgis's Christmas in July.
We had a great John Huston series with adaptations like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And for our baseball series, Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Have I told you lately how much I love that movie?
Yeah, I think you have. Plus, our Magician series and Heist film series had adaptations as well.
Tons of page-to-screen gems. Listeners can find the details and links to the original material at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play, or movie you buy through our links helps support the show, and it's no extra cost to you.
So dive in and get your next read today. thenextreel.com/originals has all the films adapted from other sources that not only we have covered, but all of the shows on the Next Reel family of podcasts. Check it out and get reading.
Support the show and build your reading list. It's a win-win. Head to thenextreel.com/originals.